One thing I didn't mention in our previous Babylon 5 episode was that Delenn called back the Rangers in preparation for a desperate attempt to fight back at Zahadum, inspired by Sheridan's words in that log. This episode begins with that, because Ivanova swings by to ask for a White Star ship to go looking for more First Ones to see if they might help. She can handle this without Lanier because she has been learning Minbari.
Zindrabi, Hatrashul, Endolo, Ishiden.
Brickbat lingerie, you say? Tell me more. After assuring her that her sexy vocabulary is great and all, Marcus should still go along, Delenn says, just to make sure. Just to make sure that any of that lingerie is up to Minbari standards. Meanwhile, on Centauri Prime, Londo and Veer show up to discover that G'Kar is being used for entertainment in his humiliation. He won't directly give them satisfaction, but there's plenty of asshole things they can do to make sport of him. I have to say, the bloodthirsty, deranged emperor who collects people's severed heads is kind of a jerk. The search for the First Ones isn't going so well. And speaking of nobody answering the phone, Zack tells Delenn that G'Kar isn't answering when they try calling him. I guess the Centauri aren't advertising that they captured the last of the Kari. The reason Zack was trying to reach G'Kar is that the information Marcus brought back has panned out. So Delenn gives permission for Zack to lead a force to try to find Garibaldi instead. On Centauri, Veer is horrified at the way G'Kar is being treated, but Londo says they just have to bide their time. They can't act now. That would be foolish. At the same time, though, Veer also isn't comfortable with trying to kill the Emperor. He doesn't really get into that whole secret assassination thing from the old days. That is, until the Emperor comes out. He is pissing and moaning that G'Kar will not entertain him by screaming in agony while he's being tortured. He goes on and on about this, too. It's like zeroth world problems, when you can't even rise to the level of first world problems to complain about. Even Veer is disgusted to the point that he finally sees, Cartasia needs to accidentally fall down a flight of stairs onto some bullets. Drifting in that direction is a problem back on B5. Delenn goes to see Lita about, I can totally believe it's not Kosh.
Lita? What happened?
The network is going bankrupt, that's what happened. Lita explains that the new boss disapproves of all the distractions in her quarters, like matter. The only thing that he's left her with is a mattress so she wouldn't fall asleep in the elevator. After dealing with the uncomfortableness of this situation, Delenn gets to the point about the attack. The Vorlons have no opinion on striking back against the Shadows? Kicking the asses of the Shadows is like their entire deal. This is like finding a teenage girl who learns about a new school dress code and says, well, there's clearly nothing I could possibly say on social media on this topic. Lita explains that there is something else going on. They seem to have a new strategy, one that they're keeping silent about. Although what's new about that with the Vorlons, huh? Meanwhile, the lead on Garibaldi has led them to a ship, but it won't listen to anything short of a few blasts. That finally gets its attention. Even then, though, all it does is ejects a life pod, and then blows up. Either self-destruct or a lucky shot. I mean, bad luck in this case, but it still would qualify as luck. Well, good news about the life pod. Garibaldi is indeed there, alive and wrapped in plastic, although his pants are still on, so clearly he was not caught looting a Ukrainian store. He's brought back and whisked into med lab to make sure he's fine after whatever happened. I mean, whatever it is, I doubt that it was for his benefit. Very few people are kidnapped and then return with some high-quality orthodontic work done. As for Lita,
You didn't have to pull out of me so fast. You hurt me.
Lita confronts him about what he's hiding from her and the way he mistreats her and just generally, why are you just such an ass? Finally, when he turns his back, she gets a look on her face like she's going to try to slip in and pry some information out when he's not ready. Well, instead, she gets zapped. What follows then is an alternative to the Vulcan mind meld. the Vorlon brain shit. It is similar, except that instead of a gentle my mind to your mind, it's I'm going to metaphorically unscrew the top of your head, drop my trousers, and take a big old crap inside your skull. Based on the screams, it's not a pleasant thing to be on the receiving end of. Speaking of unpleasantness, Londo has to have a frank conversation with G'Kar about their predicament. Now, don't misunderstand, he's saying. I get why you wouldn't want to give the Emperor the satisfaction of screaming in agony, but you need to realize that you're dealing with a madman. And to be clear, we're not talking about the way a lot of people like to use the term madman when the reality is they're just talking about an unfeeling monster. We don't mean that. Oh, he is an unfeeling monster, don't get us wrong. It's just that Cartasia's a wham, out there, goggle and nuttier than a payday lunatic. This is not someone who can safely be fucked around with. This is a my horse would make a great senator kind of leader. G'Kar explains that a Narn cannot be a Narn if they give in to their captors like that, so Londo gets practical. Your people aren't Narn right now. They're slaves, and slaves they're going to remain unless G'Kar can free them. It's a crappy choice you've got to make, but more death and suffering is not in the people's best interest, is it? No matter what G'Kar might be feeling. So, having talked about torture and slavery, let's move on to the opposite end of the unpleasantness spectrum, Marcus's love life.
You haven't...
Yes,
You're,
exactly.
with anyone?
Never met the right person before.
You know, I find that very credible. Seriously. I bet working in a mine is exhausting, and then his commitment to the Rangers when that came around, I'm sure that was absolute for him. I could totally see him just never having a chance before coming to B5 to feel like he was in a situation where he didn't have to constantly be focused upon work or being the best Ranger he could possibly be. Now he's got a chance to live, even if it is only a little bit in between jobs.
I'm picking something up.
A unicorn?
Oh, chef's kiss to that one. I wish I would have thought of that. What he's found is a really strange sort of fold in hyperspace. Something so unusual that it's only the fact this ship is partially based on Vorlon technology that they can detect it at all. Well, it's an entire fleet of Vorlon ships. Oh boy. Have I mentioned how much I hate surprise parties? Back on B5, Garibaldi has some flashbacks to recent events before waking up clearly mortified. Though at last he's conscious and can tell everybody here that we've got to warn Santiago that they're trying to kill him. Oh no, wait. Deja vu, sorry. No, the warning is from one of the ambassadors from the League of Non-Aligned Worlds about some of the other members. Seems that they're a mite worried about attacking the Shadows right now, that it will be kicking a hornet's nest while they're all naked and covered in honey. They decide to hold a public rally to try to get the populace on their side and thus pressure Delenn to not go forward, or at the very least to get her allies to withdraw support. But as Delenn notes, she can't shut this thing down. You can't go on and on about fighting for freedom only to deny people the chance to speak their minds. You're betraying what you're fighting for. Back on Centauri Prime, Londo and Vera are summoned in the middle of the night to a secret chamber.
Approach, we've been waiting for you.
Plot twist, Cartasia is actually completely sane and this has all been a reality TV show. Londo, the way you've been coping with the Mad Emperor for these past few weeks has been the water cooler topic across the Empire. I'm afraid not, though. This is where the Emperor likes to go when he wants to be particularly dickish. In this case, he's got G'Kar secured to a post and will now be flogged. And not just any old flogging, with an electro whip, each blow delivering one worse than the last. 40 lashes will kill even a Narn. So, Jakar finally gives in on 39 and lets the Emperor have his scream. Big baby. Now, throughout this episode, we have been seeing a ship flying through hyperspace, and just after Ivanova and Marcus get back to get to the bottom of that whole Vorlon situation, that ship finally shows up at B5. And it's picked a busy time to do it, because on the Zocalo, the opposition have gathered to begin their speech. Funny enough, that's the same place where Jakar once tried to turn the crowd against humanity. Well, these people argue that with the shadows withdrawn like this, there's a chance for a peaceful solution. Now, I am certainly not knocking that. I believe all of us would kind of like to see some peace right now. I'm just wondering if you actually have a plan for peace or just an abstract hope for peace, because I get the sense that it's more of the latter. I haven't seen any sign that the League has been gathering to hammer out any kind of a peace plan or a way to send a peace delegation or anything like that, on the grounds that, well, nobody wants to go to Zahadum because nobody comes back from Zahadum. That's kind of the point. And it's a bit difficult to approach Zahadum with a peace plan if you won't frickin' go there. So yeah, no plan. This is like when you see starving children in an ad and feel something, should be done about it. And then you immediately afterwards continue to watch a dozen women compete for the chance to marry a douchebag. You're sure you've got all the answers, you're just not going to actually do anything in seeing them actually happen. And plus, in this case, you're throwing shade on the people who are doing something about it. Oh hell, I just realized, all those dudes on the catwalk, they're influencers. Still, one positive thing that does increase the chance that they will go, if only so they can take a selfie in front of the Crater of Doom or something. Well, the unknown ship entering B5, thanks to it having their access codes, has caused a tiny wee bit of a panic. So, all of security has descended there to try to deal with that. Fortunately, it turns out they're not needed. In fact, this is exactly what the situation requires.
Sheridan died trying to attack Zahadum. No one who goes there comes back alive.
Yeah, that's an awkward moment when physical proof that what you just said is wrong comes walking through the door. There's no such thing as vampires, isn't that right, Count Nosferatu? Still, in the world of today's double-think and spin, it honestly wouldn't shock me if someone just pulled a gun and shot him and said, "See what I mean? Anyone who goes never survives." Well, Sheridan immediately begins a rallying cry saying that Delenn's fleet is a good start, but we need more. We need everybody to rally together to win this, and the crowd is on his side. Always remember, the best way to rally people is to come back from the dead. Well, with all this good news happening, naturally something awful has got to happen to balance it out. So yeah, Lita is not doing so well after that whole Vorlon brain shit, but it does mean that she now knows about the fleet. She's being summoned, but she's barely able to be conscious from the looks of things, and Ivanova has to come personally to bring her up there. But yeah, Lita knows what's going on, and this is not a fleet of goodwill. But I guess that kind of fits the mood, because Garibaldi doesn't have a whole lot of goodwill now either. He's really concerned about Lorien and about the fact that there are more things that are being kept from them. More suspicious than usual. But we don't really have time for that, because that Vorlon fleet is kinda, sorta awful. You see, they've decided that the time has arrived to just finally end this thing. And they're not just going to wipe out the shadows. They're going to purge everything the shadows have touched. As proof of this, they destroyed an entire planet with 4 million people on it because there had been a shadow base there. Yeah, this is not what we call good guy behavior. I can't believe I would ever have to say this, but the war has become apocalyptic, and it's getting worse. How bad is it going to get? Well, we continue on this road as we go to the next episode next week in falling towards apotheosis.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the